Is she going to off herself? What is she going to do? They literally, like, that was like a common topic. Like, you're not suicidal. You lose your kid, every parent wants to fucking die.
Absolutely.
You want to die. And if they tell you they don't, they're lying.
Hi, and welcome back to The Sad Moms. I am joined by my fellow sad mom and very good friend, Courtney, and she is Alexander's mama. So before we get started into the shitty part of your story, just tell us a little bit about Alexander.
Okay.
Just some of his favorite things, what you guys like to do together.
Alexander was a really unique kid. He was always smiling. He was nonverbal. He had a neurological disorder, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
So he was a little bit behind, but he was always smiling. He loved to play. He loved playing with magnetiles, marbles. It took him a while to be able to like pick up a marble. So I think part of it was when he was able to do it, he just loved it. So we would build marble runs. He loved riding his bike. He even put his helmet on, which normally he didn't like things on his head. We loved the trains. Most Saturdays or on the weekends, we'd always go to Griffith Park. The last few years of his life, we would take the trains. There's two different ones. We'd go to both of them. He loved that. And we would do it. We'd always do it twice. You had to do it twice. And he always walked around the block. He made you like see the small things, like literally he would smell the roses on the way around the block. And we would always have to go to the right. We'd have to follow the same routes. Alexander he loved everything. He loved being around other kids. He loved animals. He was amazing. Those were some of the things that he really loved for the end of his life.
When you think about being with him at home, what are some of your favorite memories?
Alexander had some texture issues, so he never had cereal and things like that. So he wanted eggs. So he literally would have eggs or oatmeal sometimes or waffles every single day. And so we were always cooking. And he was always, like I said before, it was harder for him to do certain things than other kids that came pretty naturally. Stirring the eggs, for example, was like a big deal to him. So he would love that. So I would get him, he had his little whisk, I had a big whisk. And so like cooking in the kitchen, we had crystal salt. So he would pinch it and he loved that he could pinch because it's a novelty. Like he appreciated all of these small things that everybody else takes for granted because it was so hard for him, right? So every morning, and it's so funny, but he would pinch, okay, put some salt in, and he'd pinch, and he'd be so proud of himself. So I remember a lot, just cooking in the kitchen. We would make Christmas cookies in July because he loved frosting them. And I thought, well, this is great. It's like, it's good for his, dexterity as well. So I remember a lot of that. We watched a lot of movies. He was funny. He loved, kind of the staples, but he used to love Home Alone. And there were certain parts he'd have to get off the couch and he'd reenact, and he'd make you reenact too, or we'd have to sing certain, like Moana. There was one song in Moana that didn't matter where I was, he'd call for me and I'd have to sing it with him. And so we just kind of he was very regimented and scheduled, like we kind of did everything like that. So the movies, the baking, those were some of the things we did at home a lot. And then just walking in our neighborhood all the time.
I love that he made you think about the small things.
Always. And I can't explain it. I think we've talked a little bit about this too, like with Rylan too. It's just, he wasn't your typical kid. He was neurodiverse, and everything was harder for him. He couldn't point until he was like, I think almost 4. So when he could point, he'd point all the time. When they used to say rake. That's because he couldn't use his fingers like most kids at like 2 or 3. So when he finally could, it was just like, wow, it was like, it was like seeing the world. Sometimes I think it's like he saw it in rose-colored glasses. And he'd have his meltdowns because of the neurodiversity as well. Yeah. So that was no joke, but you couldn't help but smile. Like, he just loved this stuff. Like, his last Halloween, we dressed up, and he loved dressing up, which always makes me laugh. Because, again, he didn't like certain textures on his body. He usually didn't like stuff on his hat, and he would wear whatever. But his favorite part was almost like passing out the candy to the kids and seeing their faces. Aww. And it was just adorable. So you couldn't really be with them for a longer period of time and not just stop and be like, wow. And and I've said this to you before, he opened up my heart in a way I didn't even, again, was it because he was my son, or was it because he was him? And it was just, everything was just so, he just looked at things differently than I think most of us do. And he was a total joy 99% of the time.
And Alexander died from cancer.
Yeah, Wilms tumor. He had diffuse anaplastic Wilms tumor, which is the bad one, the one that you don't want. So Wilms tumor is a kidney cancer in kiddos. So yeah, he was diagnosed on Mother's Day in 2021, and he fought very hard and died in January of 23, January 29th. So he fought almost for 2 years, was in remission. I say remission for about a month and a half, 2 months, and then relapsed, and then, yeah.
What was that time like? The 2 years, him getting diagnosed, and you going through just a kiddo who's having, I mean, he's neurodiverse.
Yeah.
So your life already looked a little different.
It totally
right?
did. And the therapies started, I mean, he had been in therapies and all of that, and doctors way more than the typical kiddo. Yeah. I think he had gone in originally, it was when he went to the bathroom, his urine looked weird. And I was like, well, that's weird. And you kind of let it go for a day, like, okay, what's happening? And then I called right away, and we went into the pediatrician, and they thought maybe he had a UTI or something. And I'm like, a UTI? He's 3.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? And now it's no big deal. Probably take these antibiotics and we'll come back, or maybe, and then we'll do an ultrasound if we need to. Long story short, it went on for a little while, and I was like, this is insane. So I just took him into Cedars emergency room on a Saturday night, which is a total hot mess anyway. And it was awful, and they drew blood, which was horrible. And then they took an x-ray, nothing. And then the ultrasound found it. They found a huge tumor. And by this point, it was probably like 1 a.m. And I was holding Alexander. I don't know if he had his iPad or something. And the doctor peeked his head in and said, Mama, you're sitting down. Just be calm. I just want to let you know we found something. It looks like a tumor. And I was like, what? And then fast forward, I don't know, later on that day, they kept doing tests, and then they got us into a room like hours later. And then the doctor, you knew it was bad because they're like, come with us, or we're going to play with Alexander. We're going to take the parents to a room. And he said, your child has cancer. He said, we think it's presenting as Wilms tumor, and it looks like there's a spot on the lung, so that makes stage 4. And so that's what it started. And I just remember falling to my knees and just like, what? Stage 4 in kids pediatric cancer and adult cancer is a little different. So I hear stage 4 and I'm like, holy shit, he's going to die.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was that. And so I just fell to my knees and got our composure together. And they don't really know with Wilms tumor until they take the kidney. So they do a nephrectomy. And so they take his kidney out and then they biopsy. That's when they know it was the bad kind. There's favorable histology and unfavorable. Unfavorable basically means that the tumor, chemo is really hard to shrink the tumors. Like the tumors are basically chemo resistant.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's, after a few more tests, and then his nephrectomy, we do the surgery. We transferred to Children's Hospital. He did the surgery, and then we waited for the results.
Okay.
And then I remember 2 nurses coming in with I remember our obstetrician was pregnant, so she came in and sat down, and I thought, this isn't good. And then she told us, well, we did the results, and it's unfavorable, which means, and then I lost it again. And then we started a treatment plan, and so then you start right away. Just like he had the nephrectomy, he healed a little bit from that, and it's like, okay, we're getting into chemo, we're doing this. And they took him into surgery and put a port in. That's what most kiddos have in their chest. And that's how they get the chemo, and it's just easier than poking Anyway, and so then it started.
And Alexander is non-speaking, so he must have been really scared.
I know. I think about this all the time, and I'm like, oh my God, he went through 2 years of cancer. He went through his whole life, right? But 2 years of cancer and couldn't talk. He could communicate in terms of sounds, and he had certain sounds, and sometimes you knew kind of what he meant. I knew what he meant. We were their voices. But I think about that all the time. And he did have an iPad, like a communication device. But again, he couldn't read, so it would be like you try to make the pictures as good as you could, but it's where does it hurt? And so we would go over. We had to have extra. Our doctor, hospital, how are you feeling tabs were quite pronounced, right? And I would go through them, but it's almost, and part of what Alexander had, I don't actually know if it's GRIA1 or if it's GRIA1. I don't actually know how to say it, but That's what he had, and part of that is sometimes there's intellectual disability, but we don't know because we found out on a Sunday that he had cancer, and that Wednesday we had an appointment with a genetics counselor or the doctors actually from tests we had taken months ago. So Sunday we found out he had cancer, and Wednesday we find out he has this GRIA1, which is a form of, it's part of the GRIN. It's like a spectrum. Okay. And so it's part of that. And so they were all excited because we're like, we know what they knew what this is, but that just took a back seat. We never really treated that because we had to treat cancer. Yeah. So anyway, so it was just a crazy, so that was our week. So it was good to know what he had because they thought it was autism and realized it wasn't. But yeah, he couldn't talk at all. You'd come up with different signs. You'd try to tell him what was going on and reassure him. I was there every step of them, for all of it, every test, every CT. I was like in the machine with them practically as much as I could be. You end up finding the nurses that he responds better to when you request them wherever you are in the hospital, things like that. But I think of that all the time. Like he couldn't talk, like he couldn't say, this hurts. And you'd ask him, but sometimes he'd be like, but yeah, what hurts? How do you feel? Are you scared? What do you want to know? Am I not telling you enough? It's crazy to think about it like that, you know? And I mean, I feel like you probably felt the same way. Like with Rylan, could you communicate like that to him?
I mean, it's the kind of the same as what you're saying. Like he's non-speaking too, so that was his whole life. So it's like you develop your own language. The sounds, like the tiniest sound, like you know what that sound means. And if he moves to this way or this way, I'm like, oh, he needs this. So my husband and I both just read all of those little signs or the pitch of his voice or how he'd move his body. But I think about that too. Mm-hmm.
Especially if there's something new that starts happening, like cancer. Okay, that's huge, right? We didn't have signs for that before. So now we have to create them during treatment. And it just, I think about that sometimes. Oh gosh, I hope. And that's just when you go down the dark hole of, what I wish I would have done differently, or what I wish I could have had the tools to know then. Mm-hmm. You know, you're just white knuckling it at that point. It
reminds me of the last year of Rylan's life where all those surgeries had to start happening, which was not a normal thing. So it's like,
how do you explain that?
Yeah, he has to go to the hospital a trillion more times, see all these doctors, he has to go under anesthesia.
And then he's got to wake up from anesthesia, and that's scary. It's scary going under for them. It's scary coming out.
So that, and then also just, then you're in all this pain after you go through the surgery that I can't explain either. Right. So it's just fucked up.
Yeah, it is. It's awful. I sometimes think like, God, Alexander, he was here for such a short time, and it's just like, why did he have to go through all of that? Just like the poor kid, he was so loving, and I always think I couldn't have loved him any more than I did, and hopefully he felt all of that. So on one hand, I'm like, oh, at least he got that, but on the other hand, you're just like, God, he's a child, and it's a whole other probably podcast, but like in terms of the pediatric cancer world, these chemos have been around for 40 something years. There's no new developments in pediatric cancer. And it's just, you see these kids going through it. It's like, they're taking the same shit my dad, who's fucking 70, took. He's 3.5. And it's because there's no money in pediatric cancer. It's just insane. I won't even, I was going to get on that soapbox, but I won't. But it's just, it's just so, I don't know, they're just kids. They're kids, they're innocent. And it's like, oh my gosh, you went through so much, and yet he still had, even after, I know sometimes, I look back at pictures now, and I can kind of see it because I'm a little out of the fog when you're going through treatment with your kid, but it's just like he had to have felt like such shit some of those days. And yet he'd want to ride his bike around the neighborhood. He'd want to watch the movie. He'd want to go across the street and see his friend Gate. It was just, it's shocking. And you're just in awe of these little creatures who are, I mean, if any of us were as sick as that, I wouldn't leave the couch. I know. And he's just like, this is my life, man. Like, let's get out. And some days he was a little, but for the most part, it was astounding to me that he was going through and all that was going in his body. I don't know, because his attitude was just amazing. And that's one of the things I think about that. And I'm like, it was such a lesson. He taught, I don't know, he just exuded stuff where you couldn't help be around him and be like, this kid has got to feel like shit. But yet we're going to smell the red flowers on the corner like we do every single day, even though I want to probably throw up. It's just, I find that it's just like amazing, like these wonderful little creatures.
It's like the resiliency. I think about that with
Yes.
Rylan too. He'll have gone through these terrible surgeries and then he'd be smiling.
Right.
And happy and just want
Right.
to play.
Yeah.
It just, and I feel that too when you say in their short lives, like, why do they have to go through that?
Yeah.
I'll never understand it.
No.
I'll never understand
No.
it. And Rylan didn't have cancer, but being in the medical world all the time and seeing how he was treated.
Rylan had his
like,
own struggle. Yeah.
But I agree with that. It's almost like they didn't care.
Yeah.
Or it's like they thought it was he was like a lost cause.
Yes.
And there isn't, and he had a rare disease. So there's not a lot of money being put into research
Right.
for rare diseases.
Right.
Like you're saying there's not a lot
Right.
of money being put into research for pediatric cancer.
Right.
So it's almost like these beautiful little children are being like,
Cast aside, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny, I was just having this conversation with my aunt who was around a lot when Alexander was sick, and so she saw a lot of the ins and outs of in the hospital, and it's so bureaucratic and it's so ridiculous. And she recounted one particular story that was very similar, that I think I think one of the things people say is, oh my gosh, how can you do this? Like, how can you be a pediatric oncologist, or how can you be a pediatric nurse or oncology nurse? And I think sometimes, to your point, it's almost like in order for people like that to do it, at some point you have to be a little numb maybe. But I think there's a fine line, and it's like, okay, you're a little too numb.
yeah, why the fuck do you want to work with kids? Like,
Yeah.
anytime any of these pediatric doctors would come in, I'm like, why the fuck do you want to work with kids?
Yeah.
Like, why are you here? They don't have bedside manner with kids.
Oh,
or
did you
with-
find that a lot?
I found that a lot
Yeah,
too. I had
interesting.
one of Rylan's surgeons came, and Rylan is disabled, so he was laying on the table. She came and she put her foot up on the table and went like this.
Are you serious?
She put her foot up
Oh
on
my
the table
gosh.
that he was laying on while she was doing her like consultation with her shoe, and it was just like, what the fuck are you doing, lady?
Oh my God.
child is laying here. Why the fuck is your foot on this table? So I think just like a lot of times, so many physicians that work with children that I don't think give a fuck about kids.
I'm sorry you ran into
Yeah.
that. Overall, we had a pretty good experience. There's a few. I mean, that was just like, hello. But and some of it was just like, well, that's just the red tape. That's how the hospital's structured. It doesn't make sense, etc.
I mean, the healthcare industry, like you said, is maybe its own separate
Oh my
podcast.
God.
But it's definitely something that is a trend when I'm talking to other sad moms that has come up. That
Oh.
definitely other sad moms who are medical moms who have been going through the hospital system,
Yeah.
who have had sick kids or kids with like medical complexities, that the way the healthcare system is run for kids, the way that physicians treat kids is pretty fucked.
It's a whole other. I don't even know where to start with
Yeah.
that, because I mean, from an adult's perspective, it's messed up. So whatever. So adults always have. It's better for the adults, right? So if the adults is fucked up, the children, I don't even know what you say. You
Yeah.
know. And there's some ways. There's some great advances, and there's a lot to be thankful for in terms of, okay, we got him great care, but there were times where I was like, we live in a big city. We are in the second largest city in the country, and this is how it's run. And again, it's archaic. Some of it's archaic, and maybe they're trying to help it, but that's probably a whole other podcast.
Right. You and I are kind of in the same, I guess, like time span as far as our grief
Journey.
I fucking hate that word. I can't fucking stand that
Or
word.
grief sentence, maybe.
Yeah, the grief sentence.
It really is.
It's a fucking sentence.
It's a total fucking. Didn't even do anything wrong.
No.
But we do talk about maybe in previous lives we were fucking horrible people. But
Yeah, I mean, for sure, we were horrible people.
But
in our
were
previous
we? Or
lives.
did we get a short end of this? Anyway, whatever. Our
No.
kids got shorter. But anyway.
So Rylan died on December 30th of 2022, and Alexander
Died on January 29th of 2023.
Okay, so we're 2 years in. So when you think back on the first year, what kind of comes? I mean, it's such a fog the first year.
I was going to say, it's like
But-
what they always say. It's like a total fog.
But is there anything that you can think of during that time, like that you were feeling or?
Oh, I was numb. I didn't realize how numb I was. I feel like it's so cliche in the grief world because we all say it, and it's so true. And you don't realize it's true until you get out of it. And then you're like, oh, wow, that is really true. But I think that year one was just totally going through the motions. I remember the first few weeks because Alexander died in St. Jude. We were there for 3 weeks before he died. And so when I finally came back to LA, I just remember it was like a fog. His stuff was all out. I just came back and my dog is like, where, you could tell he's like, oh, where the hell is he? Where's Alexander?
Yeah.
So I just remember the first few weeks, like I barely remember. It was just honestly going through the motions. I do remember one of the things I said early on is to get out of bed every day, because you don't want to, and you get out of bed every day. And I took a shower. I remember I say sometimes, like, I don't know that I brush my hair every time, and I pretty much put on sweats, but I took a shower every day, and whether I washed my, but that was something that I'm like, I have to do it. And partly because it was the only thing that sort of felt decent, right?
Yeah.
Because everything else feels horrible. Going to the grocery store is horrible. We used to go to, there's a grocery store up here, and that was our grocery store. That's where we went. Alexander used to call it the green stores, the Sprouts. And so we would go, and I couldn't go there for a year and a half. I literally would drive 20 extra minutes to go to the grocery store because I couldn't go in there.
Yeah.
And then when I finally did around year 2, when I was finally able to, by year 2, it was almost cathartic. I talked to him going on the aisles. It was sad. I cried a little bit at the first few times, but now I go all the time, and it's like I feel him there. It's so weird. But yeah, like just things like that. Like first year I was numb, and then you're just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what to. I mean, you really are. It's like a fog. I don't even
know.
remember. That's about what I can remember from year 1.
So Alexander didn't die in the same city where you live. Mm-hmm. So what was that process like coming home?
Well, I have family. My sister lives in Nashville, and so which is about 2 hours from Memphis, which is where St. Jude is. And so I just stayed with them for a while and just did my own thing. I wasn't working right then. And I just basically I don't know, I was like a little puppy. I just kind of did whatever they did. And my nieces and nephews were there, so that was helpful. And they missed Alexander just as much. So we'd talk about him all the time. That's been constant with my family.
Okay.
And when people get to know, I talk about Alexander all the time on a daily basis. And I mean, I've always done that. So that was helpful. And then finally, and the dog was there too. They were watching the dogs. Yeah, I don't know. I was there for probably 3-ish weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And then I wanted to drive cross country by myself. So I rented a minivan, got all of Alexander's shit, because we had taken so much to St. Jude because I wanted it to feel homey. So my sister got a bunch of bins, and I loaded this minivan. I took a minivan cross country. And I wanted to drive by myself, and everybody was like, no, you're not doing that. Everybody was so worried about me. But I just felt, it's one of those weird things. I don't know if you felt like this, but after Alexander died, and again, you're in a fog, but when the fog lifts a little bit, or there were times in the first year where it would lift and then come right back. But like, you just know yourself, you're inside. There's a keener sense of, no, I don't want to do this, or this is what I need to do for myself right now. It doesn't make any sense, but I just feel it with everything I have. And I would have never thought that I would have wanted to drive across country, but that's just like, I need to get the hell out of here. I need to drive slowly back to LA. I need to be back. And so that's what I did. I drove cross country. My friend, everybody was all worried about me. So my friend actually did meet me in middle America. I don't even remember. I think Arkansas. I don't know. But I could have done another day. I would just drive for 8 hours a day. I don't know how I did it. And I am surprised, because normally I can drive for like 2 hours and then I have to take a nap. I just drove. I talked to Alexander. His ashes were in the front seat with his Gigi, which is his Lammy that he always had. Gigi, the dog Sunny, and Alexander's ashes were in the front seat, and I drove.
You guys had a road trip.
We had a road trip, and I talked to him the whole time. Yeah, I don't know. Again, it was one of those things. So that's what I did. And then I got here, and the fog was heavy again. And by about year 2, it was like, oh, okay, starting to lift. And
when I think back on the first year, I didn't know what the fuck was happening.
No.
I mean, I still don't really know what the fuck is happening, but I definitely feel a little more like clear-headed as far as making decisions and what I can handle and what I can't handle. I think the first year I was doing a lot of things because I thought I had to do them, but I definitely couldn't really talk to people. I couldn't answer text messages. The only thing that made me feel better was going to grief group, talking to other sad moms, and I don't know. And now I feel like I've gone quiet.
Yeah.
I feel like things have gotten really quiet.
I agree. Year 2 did that. Yeah, year 1, I think because I was here, and I'm single, so I was here, and so I think everybody was so worried about me. Like, okay, is she gonna answer? Is she gonna off herself? What is she gonna do? They literally, like, that was like a common topic. Like, you're not suicidal. You lose your kid, every parent wants to fucking die.
Absolutely.
You want to die, and if they tell you you don't, they don't. They're lying. That doesn't mean we're going to. That doesn't mean we're gonna do anything. Everybody was so worried about me for that whole first year, like so obviously, that I felt I had to respond or I had to. So to your point, yes, I felt a lot less of that on year 2. Number one, people forget, like people just leave you alone a little bit more because they're like, okay, I'm over it. Not over it, but they just
they are kind of over it.
And they go on with their lives.
Right?
And
Yeah.
But year 2, to your point, I agree. My energy is this, and I know what I can do in that amount of time, and then I'm done.
So you and I are past formalities, but like, you're a single mom and Alexander has died, and like, how have you not fucking offed yourself?
I know.
You know what I mean?
Everybody says that, and I said to my therapist,
I
was like, is something wrong with me that I haven't?
No, but what I mean to say is, even with 2 living children, it's hard for me to find meaning, and it's hard to keep going. So I always think about you, because I'm like, how is she doing it? How does she get up every morning? If she can do it, I can fucking do it. I have to do it.
And I tuned into like a lot of the only children or that have died. Like I know other parents like that too. And I'm like, and I think about them. I'm like, well, they've done it for 30 years, so I'll do it. And it's one of those, but it's hard. And you have days where you're just like I said, you're like, what is the fucking point? Like, this is so trivial. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do a job, but for what, for what? And I guess the good part is, it's not good, but is that you like get glimmers of hope. So like those days, the bad days are the bad days. And I just know that, all right, I'm going to go to bed early tonight. This day is up. It's not going to get better. I'm having a really tough, I miss Alexander and just want to be with him day. I'm going to get in bed with my dog and I'm going to read, On the other hand, because some of the moms don't have children anymore and some of them do, I get to grieve and do whatever the fuck I want when I want. And sometimes that's very helpful. So your girls are around, you, I would imagine, have to sort of figure out when you can. I mean, you can cry and all that, but you don't have time to yourself whenever you want necessarily, right? Maybe, I don't know. I also just think it's like all I know. Like you just do what you have to do. Yeah. And I don't know, there's not a good answer. And I don't know if I had a partner, if I was with Alexander's dad still, things like that. Like, I have a feeling we'd grieve very differently. And I don't think that would be much fun either, Yeah. And so it sucks. But if I'm feeling sad, I text a family member. I text somebody who knew Alexander. I'll call him. Or I'll just have a good cry fest, which, is hard to do. I'll go for a drive. I'll go for a walk. I don't know. I think the big piece after your child dies is finding purpose again and figuring out like what to do. And there was a mom, and I think I mentioned this at one of the grief groups, and she said, and she was still so new, so she's like in the year 1 phase fog, and she said, I think her daughter died at 16 or 17, and she said, I know that wasn't her whole story, and it's not my whole story. It resonated with me so much, but she's like, she's like, I can't explain it. I just know somewhere that this isn't our whole story. Yeah. And I think that's partly what keeps me going. I can't explain it to you. It doesn't make sense. You'd think I would just shrivel up and die and not get up every day out of bed. But on some level, it's not our story. It's a shitty story, and I hate that it's our story, which I also probably have to accept. But I don't know. It's just, that's not Alexander's whole story, and I guess this isn't my whole story either.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
The bottom line, fuck girl, I don't know. Here I am, and I mean, luckily, I have a great circle. I do have great friends. Something with even Alexander keeps me going. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, like his attitude. It's like everything he went through, it's just like, I'd be kind of selfish if I off myself.
Yeah, you're right. Looking at the resiliency of our kids and everything that they went through.
You probably have some of that, Ryan. Ryan probably got some of that from you. Yeah. Maybe Alexander got some from me. Like, we're stronger than we know. I know we all hate that. I know. I couldn't help it.
Tell me what's one of the worst things somebody has said to you during your grief process.
I feel like I haven't gotten the doozies that some of you guys I know you've not gotten any of that. He's in a better place bullshit.
Really?
No. And if I have, it was in year 1 where I was basically tuning them out anyway. Oh, I lied. Right after Alexander died, so we were in Memphis, and after a few hours or whatever, I finally left the hospital, and it was a Sunday, and we just all went to the bar. We were like, oh my God. I was like, I need a Bloody Mary. For some reason, I was craving a Bloody Mary. I don't know why. It was just so fucking random. And it was like 9:35 or 9:40, and they can't serve alcohol till 10 a.m. So literally, like, all of us just sat in the bar, fucking waited for them to open the Bloody Mary. So actually, Alexander's aunt was saying, listen, it was trying to talk to the nurse, like listen, her son just died. We really need a Bloody Mary. That's all she wants. And I was like, and the waitress, when she finally did come over, she did say, he just was too good for this earth, or one of those things. Like, he wasn't meant for this earth. And at the time, I was like, I've thought about that. Right? But that was probably one of the worst ones. Like, he just wasn't meant to be here. He was just meant to be here, do his part, and then leave. So that probably was one of the worst. And that was literally the first thing anyone said to me. And after that, Shawnee, I think I just tuned it the fuck out. I don't know. What about you?
I think there's just so many
all
things. I think I've heard all of them. He's in a better place.
You really have? Like, people say that?
Yeah, people have said that to me. People say this shit to me. And I feel like I've had to become this dissociative human being where people just say shit to me and I just have to smile and walk away.
Well, we talk about that a lot in groups too. We have like double duty. We're grieving something that isn't natural, that no person in the world should have to do, like grieving the loss of a child. And then you have to sort of be the grief etiquette person.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't want to say that. You want to say this, or this is how I'm feeling. This is what, or like, once they learn, oh, your son died, and then they have that reaction, they're like, oh my God, they're mortified or whatever, or they just say more dumb shit. Then it's your job to like, okay, it's okay. Listen, you don't have to feel like this, or it's like a double, triple whammy.
We have to make other people feel better. Right. Like, we already feel so shitty. And then we have to spend our time holding other people's hands. I'm so fucking sick of it, Courtney. I can't do it.
It's such a funny thing in society, though. Like, I was listening to this podcast, and they were talking about like how society's basically done, like we've basically reverted. Like back in the days, and I don't remember, was it 18th century, 17th, 19th century? I don't remember. But basically when they all wore black. So you knew people were grieving. Like, I wish there was like a sign that we could all just wear. Like, leave me the fuck alone. I'm grieving and I am not in a good place. But like, remember, they used to all dress in mourning. Remember Queen Victoria? I think like when Albert died, she wore black the rest of her life because she was so depressed. So they wore black. And then it was like, it was talked about. Like all the families came over, the kids, all the community. It wasn't a secret. And the other thing is back in the day, children dying because of the flu before a lot of medications, it was so common that it was talked about. And so it wasn't this weird fucking thing that we have now where it's like, it was like, we've really like digressed. And I think that's sad. I'm like, gosh, we should go back. Like now, like we've talked with this with your girls, like sometimes kids don't know, well, we don't tell them like that they died, or we say they just went to heaven, or back 100, 200 years ago, all the kids knew. Like it was just, oh, she died. Oh, that's sad, and I'm going to see the dead body or whatever. And I don't know. That's kind of interesting. Our society has completely digressed, and it's like, it's 2025. How are we so uncomfortable with death and what to say and the reaction?
I think it's just making me it has made me not want to talk to anybody.
Oh God, no. Small talk is like, oh my gosh, it's like the enemy. It's like the worst.
It's the worst.
It is absolutely the worst.
I will, if I meet somebody else or if I'm having small talk with people, I just know when it starts talking about either how many kids do you have, or it's gonna get, I always am like, it's gonna get to the point where I'm gonna have to say it.
Yeah.
And then this person's gonna feel bad.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna feel bad that they fucking feel bad.
Right.
And then I'm gonna feel like shit after. And this interaction that probably only lasts a couple minutes is not gonna make a difference to the other person, but I'm gonna fucking think about it for the rest of the day.
And then they're gonna think about it because they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I met this lady today and her son died. Her young child died. And then it's so true. After the weather, you just know where it's going.
It's doomsday.
It's like, stop.
Yeah.
Stop. I don't give a shit. You don't give a shit. Can we talk about either something meaningful or let's just not talk? Silence is okay too.
What am I thinking? I'm just thinking about like when I have to be around other people. And also, it's also awkward if they don't say anything or acknowledge it.
Like if they know?
It's a really weird line. Because sometimes you're talking to somebody and they won't acknowledge it at all.
Yeah.
They won't acknowledge anything about it. They'll just act like everything's fine. And so I don't know. Which one do I want? Do I want somebody to ask me? Do I want them to ignore? I don't know. Like, that's a thing, like, with being a grieving parent. We want to be seen, but also we want to be invisible.
You're not wrong. And they always say that too, like, grief is so lonely. And I've talked to you guys about that. I felt like that, especially, probably because I don't have another living child, and I'm not married, but it's just so isolating and lonely. I feel like people don't usually ask, and I think that's a common misconception too, is that they don't want to bring it up, which we always laugh. We're like, listen, you're never going to bring it up. There isn't a second of the day that Alexander's not on or the Ryland's not on your mind.
We're always thinking about it.
Right. So that's one thing that they always say. But then I think with the people, especially if they know about it, I just say it. I say his name and I watch him squirm. I don't give a shit. We're both going into year 3 without our sons.
Yes.
And now it's to the point where I'm giving less and less of a fuck. Like the first year I was so worried because everybody was worried about me. Second year was like a little bit less so. And this year it's like, I'm going to bring him up. I know you know about my son. Alexander would have loved that. And he would have, I just keep talking about him. Like, I know they're not going to ask me. I guess I just sort of have that expectation. Yeah. That, okay, I'm going to be the bigger person here because you're mentally probably an 8-year-old, but okay. And then I bring it up. The weirdest or the hardest one for me right now is people being in a new social setting, or I recently got a new job. So some of the people knew, some of them didn't. There's really no good time when you're working remotely over Zoom. By the way, my son Alexander died. They're younger. They all have small children. I mean, it's a gut punch to anybody who hears. So when you see him in person, we talk about it. But like that recently just came up. And so now everybody knows. And so now that's a whole different thing. Now I will talk about him. Whereas before it was like church and state. When I turned on that computer in the morning for half of the day, it was just, okay, we won't talk about him. And now I'm like, okay, now I'm going to talk about him. It's so weird. I agree. You want people to know, but then you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with it.
Is there anything that you wish that people close to you would do that they haven't done?
That's a good question. I think, and they have so far, but I have a feeling the longer it goes, the more this will dissipate. But I think remembering his birthday, obviously, he loved his birthday, and also remembering the day he died. I think those to me are big. So I think to continue to do that, that's a big one. Oh God, I don't know. I guess just be aware. I don't even know really what I'd be asking, and maybe that's something I have to think about. But like holidays,
like remembering the important dates.
Remembering the important dates is huge. I think that's a big one, and I don't think that's going to go away. I think the other tricky ones are like holidays. I don't really know what the right answer is yet, though, for those. You're not going to... I don't like celebrating them right now, but I would never ask my extended family, don't celebrate Christmas. I don't know. What about you? That's a good one. I have to think more about that. Besides the dates, I don't have anything, I guess, right now.
Well, Courtney, my experience has been pretty shit as far as like friends and family goes, because I've lost basically all my friends and family. So they're all gone. So I think what I wish now that I am looking back on year 1 and year 2 and going into year 3, I wish people would have just given me a little more compassion and time. Yeah. And understood that, like, the first year I didn't know what the fuck was happening. Yeah. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't respond to texts. I didn't fucking care about anybody else. Yeah. I was, like you said, like, get up and take a shower. It's like moment to moment. Get up, fucking get the girls dressed for school, maybe eat something, and then I had to go to work 7 weeks after he died, it wasn't easy. Yeah, no. But I had to do it. Right. I didn't have a choice, right? I had to go back to work, and that was so hard. So getting through the workday in itself was a lot for me, and I just wish that the people closest to me would have showed me that they cared. Yeah. Would have, by just basically doing anything. Yeah. I think I got a shit end of the stick here with my friends and family. So I think everybody just left because I think it was the easy thing to do. Or it was like, oh, well, she's not responding. Or
right, which is hard not to take personally, but you just have to be the bigger person and realize that it's not about you, right? Yeah, but people probably took it personally, which wasn't at all.
And I just went really dark, right? Yeah. I went quiet, I went dark.
I know people who did that too.
Yeah, I couldn't talk to anyone. The only people I could talk to were other sad moms. Yeah. You guys are the only ones, because I could talk to you, you would understand. And it's kind of crazy that the only people that have been there for me during this time are the people that are also in the trenches with me.
It's also because we know, though. I mean, I wish none of us knew this shit. It doesn't make it fair. But I also just think the people that have shown up, or most of the people in my life, they haven't lost a child. Like, again, that's, I think, one of the worst. But they've all gone through shit that you're like, oh man, you get it. Like, you can tell who's gone through stuff and you can tell who hasn't, I think.
Yeah.
It's like a very big, you don't even have to wear the symbol or the black. You just know, like, the way people show up. And some people just can't. Like, they've been through it, and they're, again, I say this with my therapist all the time. I think 90%, 80%, I'll say 80, I think really 90, but percent of adults are like 8-year-olds or 10-year-old. Like, they're 10-year-olds in adult body. Like, they don't have the EQ to figure out. And it's uncomfortable, right? Like, we are like a leper. Like, they don't know what to do with us because it's not fucking normal to lose your young child, you know? So, yeah. I hear what you're saying, and it is tough. And that's like that's why I think it's great you're doing this podcast too. I think just the more people talk about it.
Yeah.
And my sister even said that. She's like, oh, I think this is great. She's like, people don't know, and she's kind of in that camp. Like, she's very close to me, and there were things I wish she would have done differently or better, and she knows that, and we're talking it through that. But she said the same thing. She's like, you don't know. You don't ever expect this to happen. You know, she didn't expect to lose her nephew, her sister's only kid. It's just like, what do you do? Like, and I think some people just paralyze. They freak out. And but I do think, like, talking about it and telling people. So it's a great question, and I've actually got to think more about it, you know?
I think I just wish people would have stayed. Like, no matter what I did.
Totally.
Like, you know, it's like, I'm at the bottom part. I'm at the fucking, this is it. This is the worst fucking thing, right?
Right.
So if I'm there, just fucking crawl in the hole with me.
I know.
Sit there with me.
How? Like, just continue to text you type of thing?
think,
Come
like,
by, or what would have...
I think it's just like, don't give up.
So continue to text.
Continue to, like, even if you don't get a response, continue to do the things and continue to show up, right? So it's like, I think this is common for most people who are grieving, is that there's a lot of people that are really there for you in the first few weeks, and they're all there, they're doing all the things, you feel supported. So that's like what it was like for me. Yeah. And then I had this great group of friends that came. They were so supportive during that time. They helped me organize Rather Than Celebration of Life. They showed up. Yeah. They were there. And then it was maybe 6 to 8 weeks in, it was like, it was silent, right? Mm-hmm. Everything went silent. It was almost like they were done. I was there for you for this time. I'm done. Whereas at that point, fucking 2 months after my son dies, I don't know what the fuck's happening.
Right.
2 years after, I don't know what the fuck is happening, right? So you have to stay. You have to stay. And as hard as it is, keep reaching out, keep doing all the things. Like, years after somebody dies, keep sending the cards, keep telling them you love them, keep asking questions about their child. Just keep showing up.
That's a great, and I started doing that in my phone now, and I was like, I gotta start writing all these down. Like, at least from our little group, I've got every kid's birthday, and I still don't know a good...
It's not a fucking anniversary.
I know. I was going to say death date. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Someone called it. I heard a mom call it a special date. And I was like, it's not fucking special. But anyway, whatever. So that day. But it is, I've noticed even like friends who've lost their moms. And I know I'm not comparing it, but I remember that stuff. And I would have never thought to remember that before. And now I'm like, that's a big fucking deal. Like, the first holidays, like, you reach out to people that I would have never known to do that. So part of it, I just didn't know. And now with Alexander, I mean, Jesus, I know, you know, but I do that now. And so maybe, okay, I do that, someone else sees it and they do it. So it's just, I don't know. But that's something that I think is important. I think the dates and just, you're like you said, just remembering, okay, thinking of Alexander today. Oh, I saw this. This reminded me of him today.
Yeah.
Or, I love the stories. And I've noticed Alexander's 2-year death date was just this week. And so I had a few people, my sister actually and my cousin both shared the memory. And it's not that I forgot. It wasn't on my loop in my mind. And I was like, oh my God, that's right. And I knew it. But I loved that they shared. Alexander used to count bridges because he loved numbers. So when we were going, especially when you drive downtown LA, you know, it's like, there's like a gazillion. So it goes 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And like, we'd have to count fast and he would help me do it. But he loved that. Sometimes I literally would just drive there just so we could count the bridge. I had forgotten for a minute that he loved counting bridges. And the minute she said it, I was like, oh yeah. So like that, just, you're right. Like you say, talk about them. But they do say grief is like a fingerprint. Like, it's different for everyone. So it's not like a blanketed do this. And
that's why I think our specific place where we're at, as far as parents who have lost a child, I feel like people don't want to be around us because they
Still?
think they're going to catch it or something. You know
still
what I mean?
I did feel like that. Do you
like
still
that
feel like
still,
that?
Yeah, I still feel like it, or it's just weird. Or if I do bring up Rylan, they become uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I know you're so good because you will always bring up Alexander and you don't give a fuck, right? But I think because I have been so disappointed by just so many people, and it's fucking crushing me. So if I bring him up and somebody gives me a weird, I don't know, response, or they get awkward, I'm just like, well, you know what? I'm not gonna fucking talk about him to you because you don't deserve to hear about him.
Really?
So
Okay.
I think so. And my husband's like you. My husband like brings him up in every, and it's not that I don't want to. I want to do that.
Yeah.
But I get so hurt, or and it just sticks with me, and then I think about it for the rest of the day because I'm like, I talked about him to you, and he's so special to me, and you acted like a fucking asshole. Why the fuck would I talk about him to you again?
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's just where my brain's going, and I don't want it to go there, because I want to be like you. I want to talk more about him and not care, but I'm having a blockage there.
It's really more, I guess maybe I'm more selfish, because I just do it for me. Like, I almost don't even register there. I mean, I'll register. And
I like that, though. I want to be some, like, you know, I like it.
I mean, I guess that's just that's my mindset around it, is that I'm talking about it because he was on my mind, and you know about it now, so I'm going to say it, versus like what I was talking about earlier at work. Like, there were times where I didn't say Alexander's name because I didn't want to get into it with them. Mm-hmm. Now they all know, so now to me it's fair game. And part of me, I say it just for me, to be honest, and I don't even give a shit, really. And maybe it just doesn't even register that their emotions, like if they're uncomfortable. And part of me, I think now it's like just giving less of a fuck. I watch them squirm a little bit, and I'm like, to me, I'm like, wow. And that's when I go back to, you're emotionally immature. Like, you can't handle this? Okay, and then I maybe stop, but I still do it.
I'm going to be more like that.
I just think you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out in your time. You'll get into a place where you just think, it's just thinking about it or framing it differently, right? Like, it'll just be different, because it's not about them. It's all for you. That's how I look at it. And again, maybe that's too selfish. But
no, it's not selfish at all. It's, I want to do that too. And I just need to, I think, be more brave.
I think you'll figure it out. Like, it'll make sense. You'll do it how you need to do it, I think.
I think I don't know.
But I hear you.
I'm having a hard time because I've been let down, right? So I feel like
people suck. Yeah. Don't we say that all the time?
Yes.
It's tough. But if you start looking at them like adult children, then you're like, oh, I'm sorry. That's as good as it is. That's sorry for you.
Second year.
Yeah.
What do you think changed from the first year?
I don't know. I think the fog lifted and it became real, I think the second year was harder than the first year.
I agree.
Yeah.
I completely
Second
agree.
year was harder. And I've heard that from a few parents too.
Yeah.
Because it's real. It's like the first, you get through all the firsts. First everything. Every day's the first. First time I watch this, first time I drive here, first time I go to the grocery store. First everything. And then once you get past that, it's like, fuck. Yeah. He's still dead. And then it becomes like more realistic, like more real. He's not coming back. And that's shit. That's still like, what? He's just not at an extended camp stay, or for me, in my case, he's just not at his dad's. Like, what? He's never coming back. Like, it just becomes more real. And then life moves on. Like I got a new job. I have to still work. Like, my life has to go on. Like, for what? So I can buy shit? Like, you know, so I can have medical coverage. You know, it's just, that's the tough part. And I think, this is our coming on year 3, and so far, I mean, it's been a shit month anyway, but to me, it's like, what's the purpose? You got to find something. That was that's for me anyway. What about you?
Second year, it's the same. Like, realizing that things are a little more real.
Yeah.
Being able to be a little more clear-headed. In what's happening and what I need and what I need to do. That's why I kind of mentioned about like the friends sticking around, because after the first, there was a girl that I'm friends with, and we're not super close friends, but she texted me for a year, maybe every couple months, and I didn't respond to her at all because I just couldn't. And then finally, after the first year, I was like, oh, I think I'm ready to talk to her. I actually really want to talk to her. Yeah. You know? And so I texted her back, and she goes, and I said, thank you for not giving up on me. Yeah. Aww. And she said, well, I had a feeling that you would come around. And I did, right? So it's just, I don't know.
That's really nice. That's amazing.
She stuck around, and we ended up being able to go, meet up and go to dinner. And I'm so thankful that she didn't give up. Yeah. So I think that's what I wish more of people, is just don't give up. Yeah. And I think in the second year, something else that we've talked about is like realizing that our bodies kind of like
Oh, we haven't even talked about that yet.
I know,
Yes.
like the physiology of grief, right? That our bodies can feel it before like one of those big days comes up, like the death date or birthdays or whatever holidays. Your body is already like fucking done.
Yes.
It knows that it's happening. You shut down.
It's fascinating to me. And I even before Alexander died, I always thought the mind-body connection was intriguing. I always believed there was something there. But now there's no way. Absolutely, like 100%. You'll start to feel crappy, and then Alexander died on the 29th. Oh, it's the 29th of February. Oh, okay. Like for me, it's almost every month, and you don't even realize it because you don't. Yeah. Time is just. I don't know if this is true for you. Time's totally different for me now. Like I half the time don't remember. It's not that I don't remember what day it is or what month it is, but it all just kind of goes together to me. And it didn't happen like that before. And I can't even fully articulate it, but time is very different to me now. And so that's why some days I don't realize the date. I don't realize that, oh God, his birthday's in 3 weeks. You do on the logical sense, but you don't. And then all of a sudden you're like, why do I feel so heavy or so... And then you look at the date and you're like, oh, just my body. Who knows exactly? Yeah, that is a huge piece. And people talk about like all of the health things that come up after their child dies. Mm-hmm. The whole real broken heart syndrome. That's a real thing. I mean, it's insane to me. Like your body just it's crazy. It's crazy.
Can I tell you something? It's in this same thing. So I've been tracking my period cycle for, I don't know, before I had kids, like 12 years in the same app, right?
Most women do.
Yeah, right. Okay. Not an abnormal thing. So I've been tracking that forever, right? So my cycle is between 24 to 26 days. And that's every month for the past 12 years.
Yeah.
So when Rylan died, my cycle was 47 days.
Oh my gosh.
And now every year since, during the time that he died, my cycle is longer than it normally is.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So when he died, I looked at this because, we're just in this time. I looked before he died too. All the years before he died, it was always normal.
Wow.
The cycle that when he died, it was 47 days. And then the year after, the first year that he died, it was 35 days. And then this past time, second year, it was 40 days. So it's literally like my body is grieving him.
Absolutely.
Isn't that insane? I went and I looked back because I was like, oh my God, I'm not getting a period. But then I'm like, oh my God, this happened. And then I looked at the dates and I went back the years and looked at all of that. And it literally, like, my body is grieving his life.
Yeah.
Like my body, I mean, and how could it not? He lived inside of me. He's my child, right? So it's like our body, we don't even realize that we need our child.
I know. I know. It manifests in so many different ways. Yeah. That's one way. Yeah. Totally.
So I just thought that was interesting. And that's something that we always talk about is that, like, our bodies know.
They do.
Even before our mind knows. Because I feel like our mind always puts up so many blockages to protect ourselves.
Absolutely.
But our body knows before, right?
Always.
Our body knows that we're mother. They know our child is missing it. So.
And everyone says that too. Like your body, or you have a new element. Yeah. Something just feels heavy or off. And then you have to stop and think, why is it off? Oh.
Before we leave, do you have any advice or words of wisdom for other sad moms who are navigating this space? I'm not going to ever say journey. I just can't do it. Navigating this path. But as a fellow sad mom, what would
I don't know.
What would you say?
I don't know. I think you have to find what works for you. I think there's, like we've talked about, I know, a decent number, unfortunately, of grief of moms who've lost kiddos, and such different things work for such different people. And I think one of the things I would say is just own your grief. Like, it's just you. It doesn't matter. It's not right or wrong. There's never going to be a right or wrong. You do you. And like we were just talking earlier, like I talk about Alexander. For some reason, that helps me. And it doesn't make me feel worse. Unless it just doesn't when I initiate it, or I like to talk it out with people. So I knew I had to find other parents, moms especially, who've lost kiddos. I also find a small group, like I like sometimes it's interesting to talk to other cancer moms, that people who've been through that whole journey. Mm-hmm. I just said journey.
Damn it.
So I know. So I think to me, it's just, that's not advice really. That's what worked for me. And I think just finding out what works for you. I have a friend who I talk to a few times a year in a different state. Her daughter died of cancer, just like Alexander. She does not like talking to people. She doesn't like talking to grief groups. Doesn't work for her. And she owns it, and she knows it. She's like, that's it. But she and I will communicate fuck this, once in a while, thinking of you. And that's it. So I think whatever works for you. That's my advice, is just to figure it out. And nothing's going to make, like we always talk about, nothing's going to make it go away. Nothing's going to make it feel better. We always say like the 0.0001%. If you can find the whatever makes you feel 0.0001% better that day, then you're doing okay.
Thank you for being here.
Oh,
thank you for doing this. I love talking about Alexander.
And I love talking about Rylan and hearing about I do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of The Sad Moms. Help us spread awareness about grief and grow our community by writing an Apple review, rating us on Spotify, subscribing on YouTube, and sharing with as many people as you can. Until next time, have a day.